Okay, I'm live. I don't know if some 4 people are already in here. Let's see. Just gonna see if that's all right. I was gonna see if I put on any more lights. Let's see if I Hello, everybody. That didn't really help. Just add a little ambience. Hello, Wolfady. So I'm going to answer the questions that came up on Patreon. So I'll try to check in on the chat, but I'll mostly be like looking over at the Patreon questions. So, but this is like a unlisted chat anyway, so it's only for patrons. Again, it's going to be up as an archive. So if you're watching this and you're trying to ask questions in the chat, the only time I'm live on here is Saturday, May 18th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Just to start, in case anyone's popping into the room, I'm going to do a little taste test of 2 lime seltzers, which I've been meaning to do anyway. So this is like, I don't think this is a store brand, but it's usually at store brand prices at one of my supermarkets. So this is Waterloo Lime. And I drink it when it's on sale. And this is one of Safeway's 2 store brands, Soleil, which is on sale a lot of times. Oh boy. I have a 12-pack, and I don't know if Okay, this is a very subtler, not super bubbly, not super intense lime. So just kind of like almost like a plain seltzer with a lime aftertaste. This one is very bubbly. Maybe it's not bubbly, actually. It has a very intense metallic lime taste to it, which is good when you want a cold drink, especially at the price point. But having them together doesn't exactly do either one of them justice. Okay, so I'm going to answer the questions that came up on the Patreon. This isn't for the episode. I'm going to try to do a call-in style episode with some of the questions that came up on there. But I'm just going to try to, for fun, since so many people have put up questions, I was going to try to answer them in person too, in regular voice, especially since I did want to keep the questions focused on the podcast and particularly broader questions that a lot of people ask. But naturally, people are curious about other stuff. So I'm gonna just be here for maybe an hour, maybe less, and run through those questions. I did want to show everybody. This is a sponsor that just started sponsoring the show, who I've been a supporter of for a while. They just sent me I have a black version of this suitcase. This is an away suitcase or carry-on. Not exactly the most ideal place to show it off. But I've been traveling with one of these for a couple of years, and they're a sponsor. They're testing out sponsoring the show starting tomorrow night. I know patrons don't get those kind of feeds, but it really is an unbelievable piece of luggage. I bought it after hearing it advertised, I think, on the Accidental Tech podcast. But it's got these 4 sets of double wheels, make cruising in the airport great. So they'll be up tomorrow on sleepwithmepodcast.com sponsors. The nice thing about it is it's like this German polycarbonate, I think is what it is. And like for me, I travel with all the podcasting equipment, and I've been looking at like Pelican cases, which were way out of my price range. And this one's great for clothes. It's bigger than the Pelican case I was looking at, and it's hard. It protects everything, and that makes it easy to pack. Might as well. Here's the lock. I haven't reset the lock. I'm just trying to buy time too. But I love this carry-on. Now that I have one for Sophia, I'll be traveling with the pink one though. If you go to PodX, but yeah, it's like 2 sides. This is like the regular side with like a zip-up thing. So this is the top. And then the bottom has like this what do you call it? Compression thing. Also comes with this laundry bag in there. And then the cool thing is that they come with battery, which I haven't installed yet. But here's like the battery. Actually, I haven't even opened the battery yet. But comes with the charger, everything for the battery. It comes with a scuff kit. Oh, cool. Anyway, because since mine's a little older, I didn't know all the other cool stuff that came with. So, yeah, that's it for the suitcase update. So I'll put this away. But yeah, check it out. I see 5 people are in the chat, or 5 people are in the thing. Wolf a day, if you have any questions, you can hit me with them. But yeah, that's it. And seltzer. Okay, so I'm gonna hit these questions. So I'll be over there, but I'll pop back into the chat every once in a while. There's the stream AMA. Dooba. Oh, what else did I put in the thing? Oh, if anybody's still having trouble, I tried to post a few times about your RSS. If your episodes aren't updating, just follow that post. If you haven't set up your Patreon RSS feed for some reason, that's like the easiest way to listen to all the Patreon stuff. Follow the post, sleepwithmepodcast.com/Patreon FAQ. If you're a $20 patron, make sure to get your dog tag. And that's it. Okay. So I'm not in the right place. Scooter singing while he tries to find the post. Oh, I guess I could have just opened the post here. Questions from this post. I could just click on that, right? Scooter is singing. Ba 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 ba. Oh, you know I was going to post this in the Facebook group, but now if anybody's a member of the Facebook group, you can post this. Well, I could just do it. Ba 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 ba. That's not the right one. Though. Never mind. It's fine. Ma da 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 da. Actually, I could try to do it while I answer a question. Okay, so there's 56 questions, which gives me 1 minute, less than a minute per question. I don't know if I will get through all these questions. So I guess I'll try to get through. Okay. Sin is the first question. This is a good common question. Does the podcast that puts you to sleep ever put me to sleep? No. It doesn't. Like that. Hi, Janet. Like that's a pretty common question. Like when I'm recording the podcast, it doesn't sound like what the podcast that you as a listener hear, and it takes like a pretty. It's like I'm exerting myself in like some sort of soft power way. I mean, it takes a lot of focus and energy and effort for me to make and record the episodes. So even though like on the end result end, it's like, so yeah, when I'm recording the shows, I'm definitely not sleepy at all. I mean, well, sometimes I'll like there's been a couple intros where I've like tried techniques to put myself to sleep. But yeah, like when I'm recording the shows, I'm like focused in there or stressed. Like I'm full of what's that stuff called? Adrenaline. Because it takes it's a lot of heavy lifting, I guess. So it never I don't get put to sleep while I'm making the shows. Lately, I mean, I don't listen to them to fall asleep just because I'm always focused on making the show better. Or if I'm listening, it's because someone asked me a question. If the episode came out, I mean, there are times early on in the history of the podcast where I fell asleep editing the shows. Because I would literally that's when I was working a full-time job and then another 2 full-time jobs making the podcast. So I'd be at work at my lunch, eating my lunch and trying to edit an episode. And I wasn't sleeping a lot then because I was working so much. So like I would fall asleep then, but it was like because I'm like focused on the editing and you can't multitask when you're editing audio. That would put me to sleep. But yeah, when I listen to podcasts, it's always with like an active ear. Okay. So that one's done. Lori asks, does my daughter have any favorite things to fall asleep to? She usually gets stuff before it comes out. So I don't know. I'd have to ask her, but like usually I'll test ideas out on her. Like she doesn't really listen. She doesn't listen to the podcast unless she's listening to me edit it or something like that. So she probably has a much different relationship with the podcast than like a listener would. But I do test out story ideas. Though lately I've been reading to her. Like right now I'm reading like a Terry Pratchett book. So like I'll like read in bed out loud while she's falling asleep. Just because then it helps with my bedtime routine. So it's like a way of unifying our bedtime routine. She'll have already read her own book, and then it'll be lights out, and then I'll just read it with her eyes closed. Like not so much like I'm reading. I don't know. Like yeah, I'm reading. I don't know. She's like 12, so it's different than reading her a bedtime story. Scott asks, do I still record in a tiny closet? Yeah. So I moved to like about 8 months ago. So the closet is a different layout. Small. The new closet's smaller and it doesn't have a door. Let me see if I have a piece of scrap paper. No, that's not supposed to be scrap paper. Let me see if I have a pen. I'm try to. I don't think I have a pen. I've been like low on. Oh no, here's a pen. This is my daughter's pen that I borrowed without permission. Let me see. So I'll draw you a little, like the old closet and then the new closet. Sorry. A little drawing time. Okay, so my drawing's terrible. Gotta hold something against. Okay, so this is the old closet, climb-in closet. Oh, everything's reversed online or in these cameras. So you go in here. This is the closet door. I guess you'd go in here. These are all closed. This is like about the width of like my elbow to my elbow, and then it was like must have been an old hallway that got made into a closet, and then I would record here behind all these clothes. So there's an old closet. The new closet's under a set of half stairs, or maybe they're 3/4 width stairs. Like so they're not the complete width of a regular staircase. And there's no door, but I do have a divider here. And so I go in here. There's curtains here, actually. So I go through the curtains instead of a door. And then I sit here where the R is record. And then, like, the closet goes back this far, but, like, the stairs are going down. So, like, there's, like, moving blankets and stuff where this stuff is hanging down. And then, so I think that explains it. Like, the closet's a little bit smaller. It's actually... but it has like a little bit, I don't know. I like the new closet because it's easier to get into. So, but yeah, I still record in a tiny closet. I don't think I would ever record anywhere else because I have a unified sound and I record almost every day. And so like that just gives me the freedom. If I had to go somewhere to record, I wouldn't. Like I record so much, like I recorded today, like a Doctor Who opening for an episode that'll probably come out like in August or maybe July or maybe later than that. Yeah. Hey, Cash. Hey, Janet. So yeah, that's like the nice thing about the home recording. How do I fit Antonio Banderas in there? I just tell him what to do. I say, Antonio, I get out of his way actually, like, and I watch everything he does over his shoulder because I'm very, so I watch everything he does, but we have to cross, we scoot by each other. Okay. Pommy asks, how did you start? I started like I'd put it off for years, and then I just started making it one day when I had another creative project that imploded. There's probably a couple podcast episodes people could direct you to if anybody thinks of those. I'm curious where I got the idea. I couldn't sleep when I was a kid. I would listen to comedy radio, but not to sleep, but to comfort me. How did you figure out that your voice had the creakiness and dulcet tones? I think the voice of the show is more about a presence than a sound. Where did I discover the tangents and meandering exposition could lead to sleepiness? I mean, I guess that's like goes over the history of the show and the evolution of the show. Like, the show's definitely evolved. And I mean, a lot of the stuff about the show is like a combination of testing stuff out, working very hard, and like refining things. So a lot of stuff that people hear now, as you said, you're kind of like a late adopter or whatever, or current adopter. It's just the show's slowly evolved and gotten better over time, and just slowly refining things. Having trouble understanding how Weird Al on the radio. Yeah, the radio for me wasn't sleep inducing; it was comfort inducing. So that just is why. So the thing about me being a kid is like I can relate to the pain of not being able to sleep and wanting something to distract you from that. And the idea of the podcast is like that's part of what it does. And then the lulling, soothing tones and the meanders kind of help you fall asleep. How do you synthesize your ideas into the sleep aid? Just a matter of like hard work. I mean, and basically like being open to feedback, testing stuff out, and just keeping at it and persisting. I think is like how the podcast became what it is today. Let's see. Nan asked about Koa. How did Koa come into your lives? A coworker, a friend of my brother, posted that he had a dog that they didn't have space for, and it was they were looking for a home for it, and we took her. She was an adult. Let's see. Janet asks, always listen to intros, never the story, rambling style. We ever make an episode talking about whatever just crosses your mind for the whole hour? I mean, those are kind of like what the Trending Tuesday episodes are about, Janet. So will you ever make an episode that, but like, I guess like for me, like that would almost be like there has to be some driving force. Like, I guess it's like hard to describe how long an hour is recording the episodes, or how long it can feel, in like also filtering it through listener expectations and stuff. So I guess like just for me, just sitting down to record an episode, I mean, there's like without anything. I mean, sometimes I do the Trending Tuesday style ones, but there has to be something to carry it through from the beginning to the end. I mean, sometimes I'm coming up with that on the fly, but like, so I guess some of the episodes are kind of a balance of what you're saying is like improv or like what's on my mind, but just have something that's like 100% stream of consciousness. Like, it would either be really hard. It would just be really hard. I don't know. It would be hard to do that for an hour. And I think it would be distracting for the listener, because it's almost like, for me to make an hour-long episode, I have to know where the episode's going to end so I can get there. But I also think like for a lot of people not to have to listen, it's also the idea that the episode's complete. I don't know if I'm making sense. I guess like it's kind of hard to describe sometimes, like some of the process of the show. Let's see. These ones are from YouTube. Cash asks, what do I enjoy most about the podcast? I don't know. It kind of changes from time to time. I enjoy the challenge of coming up with ideas. I enjoy the challenge of writing episodes. I enjoy connecting with listeners, like knowing I'm helping people who are like, I can relate to what they're going through, but then I find out they're going through things I've never been through. Like I enjoy like learning stuff that I can help other creators with. Trying to think what else. Like, I don't know, a lot of stuff that's really challenging about the show, like the hardest parts, other than the a lot of the keeping the show going parts, I don't like are really hard. I don't know if I definitely don't enjoy those most. But yeah, like listeners and the creative stuff, connecting with other people stuff, and the challenge of making the show and keeping it fresh and stuff are the things I enjoy the most. Amber, kids listen to. Thanks, Amber. Tell your kids I said hi. Best from Scoots. Okay, back to this. Heidi asks, where do I get the ideas for your stories? Pretty much everywhere. I mean, there's like ideas I forget. I'm constantly writing stuff down, and then on scraps of paper, and then losing it. So I'm always trying to come up with a better system. But everywhere. I mean, stuff I'm worried about, stuff I dream of. I mean, I don't do too much about stuff I dream about, but might be. Stuff I'm curious about, stuff I notice, stuff that gets on my nerves, stuff I wonder about, names that get stuck in my head. What if? I mean, a lot of it's what if. I mean, I think that's what drives a lot of stories. Like for the next series, I'd come up in some intro with the names of these two characters, and then I had the names of these two characters, and they said, "What if these two characters I made a series with them? What if?" And then I was like, "Well, what would that be?" So I think it's just like staying curious and being like, why is that? What's going on with that? And then just like in the intros, it's like staying open and curious to what's popping up in my head and kind of saying, what are you saying? I mean, I just recorded an intro just now, and I think the crux of the jokes in the intro, or one tangent, was about, does aural and oral rhyme? And then which one of them rhymes with coral? And then just went from there. Okay. Ellen asks, how did Carole King become my muse? Because she was, I think I kind of talk about that. Like that's not a joke. Like I had an old iPod, the hard drive platter based white iPod. And I had loaded tons of music on there, and I only listen to music on shuffle on there, or 99% of the time. And that thing had an algorithm in that particular iPod that found what songs you play the most, and the shuffle that influenced the shuffle algorithm to be more likely to play songs you already liked. And these Carole King songs got caught up in the algorithm, so they were played all the time. And to me, that was just an idea. I didn't know at the time that Carole King was living. So I said, maybe she's ghosting my iPod. And that's like a true story. Like, so that's like, to go back to Heidi's question. Like, I was like, is Carole King living in my iPod as a ghost? And I Googled that, and I said, oh, well, she's alive. Well, her spirit, maybe she's spiritually invested in my iPod. So that was how that worked. Please do Lost was the next question. I know one of the hosts of one of the Game of Thrones podcasts, she's going to do Lost. I don't know. I mean, maybe one day, like I plan to schedule the show out pretty far ahead of time. And I mean, I love Lost. Again, I just don't know. We don't have any openings like in 2019 or maybe even 2020 or late 2020. So I'm not saying no, but I'm saying maybe one day, like I'd have to like reassess my feelings about Lost. I mean, I really like the show, and that was like one of the podcasts I listened to obsessively. It was the two writers from Lost, or two of the creators, Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse. They had a great podcast, like talking about the show. So maybe, but right now our schedule for TV shows is like until into 2020 is like plotted out, and some of the stuff's recorded. I record like stuff like in a perfect world, I would record stuff 3 months before it came out, but right now it's more like 1 to 2 months. Let's see. Would a goat ask a rhetorical question? Of course. That's from Schnurley. Schnurley? Wendy. Who is the Diane that Simon talks to? Diane is like a kind of a reference to Twin Peaks. And it is like in the TV show Twin Peaks, Agent Cooper would leave voice memos or like things for Diane. I mean, in the reboot of Twin Peaks, we meet Diane, but she was always this mysterious character that seemed like I mean, not all like I don't know. She just seemed like both a pen pal and a professional, like super professional person you could rely on, and maybe someone he had a personal connection to. And so that's kind of like what Diane is. Maybe like there's more revealed subtextually in some of the Big Farm in the Sky PI episodes, but like that's where Diane came from, and it's like Simon's leaving like these voice memos or voice messages for Diane. I don't know. Is she a transcriptionist? Is she his like a professional partner? I don't know. It is a mystery. It's one of the big mysteries in the Big Farm, but it's definitely influenced by Dale Cooper, as Pommy said. Could you curate an episode of all thank yous? I possibly could. I mean, other people have asked for that, so just remind me. I could probably put it out on like a Friday or Saturday as a patron reward. Susan asked, when's the next trip with Ray planned? We had a trip, and Ray actually recorded an episode about it. I don't know when it's going to be released. I haven't listened to it yet. It's been edited, like the first pass edit. But so eventually that'll come out. I don't have a date on it though. But yeah, Ray has recorded an episode that will be out probably in June or July. I have to drink some. I have some Dr. Pepper here too. Cherry Dr. Pepper. Okay. Mirak asks, if money were no object, what direction would you like the podcast to go in? If money were no, I guess it would depend on how much money we're talking, because I kind of know the other side of keeping a successful podcast sustainable. So if money were no object and it didn't come with a bunch of strings attached, I mean, one, I would just want to keep the podcast. I mean, that's what I'm really trying to do is beyond the Patreon with the sponsors is keep the podcast free. So if I could guarantee the podcast could stay free, that would be great. If it was more money than that, I would want to do, the first thing I would do is Sleep With Me in other languages with other hosts that are like native speakers in that language, which would cost that would cost a boatload of money because of the translations. I would want everybody to be paid. So, covering all those costs. That's my. Maybe like a couple other versions of Sleep With Me with other voices or tangentially related versions of Sleep With Me. Maybe another side fund for other podcasts or other podcast initiatives, giving more money to the different things that are trying to help grow podcasting for everybody in all voices. I don't know. There's a couple other stuff. If I had more time, I would work on that are more experimental versions of Sleep With Me or other kind of podcast stuff. I don't know. More than that. There's a couple other stuff. I would love to see Sleep With Me translated in other languages, and that be funded, and just making sure that the distribution costs of the free podcasts would always be covered. I think, probably other stuff, but the stuff that I want to do that's restricted by money, I guess it's kind of those translations. And I mean, there's just not a way to fund that, like, in the foreseeable future, like even at a break even that I can see. But so that would be amazing. And then like it could, I mean, I guess that would be it. It would be like hiring someone to do the producing of that. Like, so that'd probably be multiple people. And then the translation talent, the hosts, and then it would, if we had money to do that, then it would be story solicitation. I mean, and that would go on, if we were doing that in other languages, then we could also translate it back to English, maybe do another, I could be doing stories translated from other language. Like I read a lot of Clarkesworld. It's a sci-fi, it's a huge tangent. But so that would be like, that would be one place if money was no object. That'd be like, okay, who wants a very high paying job? It'd be like, you're making more than Scoots. But yeah, it would be like that would be it. Let's see. Heath asks, have I thought about putting my stories in book form? Yeah, I mean, that's something I get asked pretty often. And eventually that'll probably happen. Like, it's just a matter of like, my bandwidth is one issue. Like I work a lot on the just keeping Sleep With Me going. And so hopefully we're approaching the point where so it'd be like, eventually, yeah, there'll be like Sleep With Me in book form. Let's see, I'm back on Patreon here. Do you think there'll ever be a boy who can swim faster than a shark? I don't know how fast a shark can swim. Probably. I have no idea. I hope so. I guess that would be my answer. When you can't sleep, do I talk to myself until I can't fall asleep? No, I mean, I guess not that is Norman's question. I mean, I do try to sometimes use positive self-talk to help myself fall asleep. Doesn't always work, but not so much like on the podcast. I kind of be like, okay, do like you can't sleep. Let's try another position. Okay, why don't we try reading? Marna asks, what's my favorite stuffed animal and why? I don't know if I mean, right now my favorite stuffed animals would be my daughter's ones, which is like the sheep from Sleep Phones and one of the like Dalmatians from one of the small Dalmatians from 101 Dalmatians, but I don't know which one. I think I had a teddy bear with a yellow ribbon when I was a real little kid. But I don't have that from when I was little. So yeah, I don't have my own stuffed animal. I don't think I'm very particular like about how I like my bed. So like, I don't have like a stuffed animal bandwidth, I guess. Let's see. Can you give us a Too Sleepy Wasn't Listening on Bernie the Butterfly? You have to kind of listen to those episodes, I guess. Like Bernie the Butterfly is just a butterfly that dislikes humans. I think he pretty much, if you listen to the one about the totes, we kind of give a lowdown about it. He's just a character that's like got a little bit of a cult following with the listeners, or the like listeners that really follow the podcast. And when we thought about merch, it was like, oh, what characters could we do merch for that would be interesting, that would translate into art, that don't need to be, that, I don't know, that would just translate into good art. And Bernie was the first one we tried. But yeah, he's pretty awesome. He's just a grouch. But yeah, we cover it in the episodes a lot. He's just he's like a grouchy butterfly that I befriended who doesn't like me or other humans. Penny asks, when I spell out words, is because are they negative or trigger? It's kind of like a playful version of that. It is like, I mean, because I can edit everything out of the show. Like the editors listen to the show and I listen to the show a few times usually before it comes out. So, but yeah, it's usually a playful way of saying, I don't know. It's like, instead of like putting out up a brick wall against something negative, it's kind of like dancing with it or something like that. What do I consider the sleepiest subject of all? No, that was from Mora. Sleepiest subject of great. I don't know. I mean, everything about the podcast is not sleepy, I guess, in some sense, because it's all about humanity and being human. I think it's just, most of the things are about people struggling to get what they want. They just happen to happen in sleepy ways because of the way I tell the stories. Cassidy, have you ever thought about adding a rhythm to it in creating a poetry song episode? The Super Deluxe episodes are kind of like that. They have music. Those come out. One came out today. People, to be honest, like anything having to do with singing, I get so many emails about, even like anything bumping up against singing or earworms, that anything, it would have to be some sort of separate. Just I get like, people feel very strongly about singing in the podcast because it wakes them up, especially musicians, but anything like if I sing in the middle of the episode, especially in the so I don't know. I think it would have to be outside of the free podcast, and I'm not really a singer. So I don't know. I like musicals, but the idea of making a musical sleep podcast, I would be like, okay, that would be a lot of it'd probably take like 40 times the amount of work. So it's like, oh yeah, maybe one day that would be cool. Susan asks, am I correct that Ray moved in next door to where I moved? Yeah. Ray, there's where I live is now is there's a lot of places for rent. Not there's six, we're just friends. So he wanted to keep an eye on me. So when I was looking for an place to move for 6 months to a year. So because I had rent control, wasn't a hurry. So yeah, we kind of looked together. Okay, let me just pop back to YouTube. Okay, a bunch of questions on YouTube. Why do I mention Nietzsche in intros? Just because anything that's Jen asked that. Thanks, Jen. It's I guess because anything with philosophy I can relate to, because it's existentialism, absurdism, anything like that. I can picture myself staying up all night thinking about the implications of my existence and not being able to sleep. So I try to it's just, I guess, similar to that, to Penny's question about spelling out I don't even know I wouldn't even spell out SNAKES is on the podcast, but that is just a playful way of saying, hey, let's not do any thought experiments in bed or think about any think pieces or philosophical quandaries, because that is one thing that will keep me up all night. If I start going down the road of philosophy or what do I really believe in? It's okay, well, now I'm never going to fall asleep. Why am I here? It's okay, well, do you got 4 hours to spare to think about it without getting to a point? So it's just kind of a playful way of saying, especially when I accidentally start talking about something like that, it's a way of being oh, okay, Scoots, no Nietzsche in bed. Let's see. So Penny, yeah. Oh, Ninja. That's probably one that's playful. But those were, I guess, I'll spell out stuff like that where it's well, people could be scared by ninjas. I find ninjas, there's people that probably 12 years ago were watching Ask a Ninja, so they have one relationship with a ninja. There might be people my age that was this big ninja renaissance when I was a kid, that think ninjas are cool, but there might be some people that are oh, ninjas are assassins. What do you mean they're cool or funny? There's nothing funny about them. They're deadly assassins. Cash, love your. Oh yeah, I try to keep the childhood recollections coming when something comes to me that I think can formulate a whole episode. Let me get another drink here and pop back to so I'm back on Patreon. So if anybody has any questions on YouTube, I'll be back. Okay, where was I? Okay, Julie asks, appreciate the episodes from the vault. There's something. Okay, this is like a pretty big question. Like, geez, your voice, like, I get this question a lot. Like, your voice sounds different in the earlier episodes than the older episodes. And that is like really, I mean, to me, it's a result of just a slow evolution of the podcast, and that hearing like an episode that was made like 3 years earlier, or even 2 years earlier, or even 1 year earlier, that means like for most of the history of the podcast, 150 episodes or more than 150 had been made in that time. And so there's like 150 opportunities for tiny change. But then also like a lot of earlier episodes just depended on the equipment we're using and the post-production. Like there's not really any, we don't modulate my voice or anything. And we still don't use, still using like prosumer equipment, like, or like, so I just use a mic, and I've changed the mic 4 times. There was a mic I started the podcast with that we had for a long time. Then some interim mics we had that like I wasn't happy with. And then the mic we've been using now, I've probably been using for like 2 or 3 years. I'd have to look, just storm, I have a storm here and it's really bad outside. And then the preamp we used, we didn't even have a preamp for the first couple of years of the podcast. Then for like a year or two, I had like a $30 preamp. And now like we have a preamp that has like the ability to like lower sibilance and like roll off some just to help keep some of the non-podcast sounds out of the podcast. There's like a gate, and then there's like a high pass filter, low pass filter. I think maybe those are both, like one's a low pass, one's a high pass, just to keep like airplanes to reduce airplane sounds or reduce like noises like that. And then there's a post-production, which in the first 100, so it's just as I go into the archives, first 101 episodes, I think, had no post-production. I mean, they were edited, but there wasn't any compression or noise reduction or anything like that. Just over the years, we've really invested a lot of money into like our post-production process. And so we use like a really nice like noise reduction filter, like a noise reduction, what are those things called? Like this is just the processing during editing. So we use compression. I don't even know what it's called, like a loudness, something that like a compressor that like just brings up, makes things like louder. Compression makes everything more even. And then noise reduction, and then normalization at the end, and that's kind of it. So the show is just kind of, the sound has kind of slowly changed, but there's been those big jumps as we've like invested more. And then probably I don't have, this is, what do you call it? Circumstantial or whatever, based on just my impression. But I would say that my microphone technique has improved over all that time, and that I've gotten more and more comfortable, like getting even close. Like I still have a little bit of distance with the mic, and I'll still like some weeks be like, man, is this like, I'll be listening. I mean, I guess one of the things about the podcast is like I'm monitoring my audio. So as I'm talking, I'm hearing everything I'm saying, which I've gotten used to. But so like, I don't know, like also as part of my brain, like monitoring that, but it's mostly just small changes and then some equipment changes, some post-processing changes. Maybe my voice is like, I record almost every day. So it's like, maybe there's some wear and tear in my voice. I don't know. But it really, the voice about me for the podcast is like, when I'm recording, it's like, okay, I'm there and I'm here to put you to sleep. And if I'm in that mental space, my voice just kind of follows it. Okay, Kay asks, what time is it? Okay, I got 15 more minutes about it. Kay asks, how many of the non-Scooter characters are invented just for episodes? Pretty much every. I mean, I don't think I've carried over anything. Well, let's see, from other projects to the podcast. Have I? I mean, if I have, I probably forgot. I mean, invented just for the episodes. Like a lot of times, I'll have ideas for stories, and I'll be like, "Oh, is this a podcast story or another kind of story?" Or any even part of your storytelling before the podcast. I don't know. I mean, my imaginary friend Bill, all the voices in my head. I don't know. I mean, I think like one of the things about the podcast, to answer your last question, is like creating characters and giving them backstories. I think is like it's important to just start. Like I think like a lot of writing advice I see sometimes is like that you have to like know your character inside and out and know everything about them in order to write, and that you have to have their entire life history. And I think that's important, but I think there's also like investing time in like giving your character like getting to know your characters, like almost like if your character's an adult and you're an adult, like a lot of times I don't look at it like I'm going on a blind date with them, but by working through conflict and stories with the characters, like you're also getting to know their backstory. I mean, I guess if you're getting paid to write like a novel or you're writing a movie and you're already getting paid, that's probably different. Like you probably should know every single thing about the characters. But if you're writing for fun, or with the podcast, it's like, okay, like I'm writing on these really tight deadlines. Like the new series I was hoping to record yesterday, and I have to record it tomorrow, the first episode. And part of that is like because I don't like I'm just getting to know these characters. It's like the first time we're going out together or hanging out or whatever. So it's like, man, I don't even know. So I think a lot of it is like discovering their backstory through how they deal with conflict or how they deal with stuff and like putting them in situations and seeing how they react. Is for me how I like get to know the characters and how they develop. Wendy, thanks. Heidi. Okay, that might be an unrelated question. Jeff asks, is Laura okay? I think that's about Laura, the moderators. The Facebook group's independent from the podcast. It's like a listener-run Facebook group, and moderators change on there all the time. It's a very demanding volunteer thing because they want to create community. Let me check back in here. Nietzsche, Ninja, me and my puppy smell like the episodes where you read Wikipedia pages. I do all the Game of Thrones ones have and Doctor Who and Star Trek ones have a lot of research content on the back ends. It just kind of depends. I guess it has to be like if there's a subject. I'm trying to think what I have recorded. Probably. I mean, I more plan it out. Like, I guess there'd probably have to be something that had me stumped that I thought was like 55 minutes of material that I could investigate. But there might be something I already did. Like I have so many, it's like I don't even know all the episodes I've recorded. But yeah, I do enjoy those episodes. But yeah, all the TV recap episodes on the back ends of those, they all have like research portions, or almost all of them. So most of the Game of Thrones, they're in the middle section. Let's see. Jill asks, happy to help. I'm glad I have the podcast helping. I guess like maybe one day I would write novels. Like right now, like I work on the show like 90 hours a week, maybe 80 hours a week. So it's like maybe one day. I don't know if I would write a novel. I mean, for now, I'm like, oh, maybe one day I'm trying to find time to like create written versions of podcast. But yeah, maybe one day, like after I retire, when I retire from podcasting, maybe I'll like write books. But I really love telling stories. So like, yeah. And I'm glad the podcast is helping you. Heath asks, what advice for fellow creatives to keep the ideas coming? I mean, I think like for me, like I think deadlines are one of the most magical things in the world, even self-enforced deadlines. But like if it's a deadline to the public, even if I mean, when I started the podcast, there was no listeners. Like even after doing the podcast for months, there was only a few listeners. So if you can do something that you're creating on a public deadline, like for a new audience, like say your art, if you're doing, let's just say, so like you say, well, I like drawing, like, so I want to do a web comic. Like if you set that on the 15th of every month, you're going to put out a web comic, and you just commit to that, and it'll be painful, believe me. Like I know, like, and scary, but that deadline will, like, if you say to the little Heath inside you, like, hey, I know you want to make this comic, like, so we're going to do it at 15th every month. I know it's not going to be easy, and I know it's not going to be perfect, and maybe not a lot of people, this is how I started the show, not a lot of people are going to listen. Wow. Like, but if it's just important to you to put these comics out, like, I'm just using that as an example, but, and then when that deadline comes, like, if you know you're going to stick with it, like, you're like, in some sense, like, you're not playing chicken. You're saying, I'm putting something out, whether it's, I feel like it's complete or not complete, I'm putting it out there. Like it'll work. And then I mean, I would say deadlines and daily work. Like for me, like, and I tell people all this time, and I know it's hard to believe, but if you work on something for 5 minutes a day for 30 days, like, I don't even know what that is, like 5 minutes times 30, but it is so powerful, like so much powerful than working 6 hours in one day, like on something creative. Like it is, that's the other thing that's absolutely magical. And it is where I mean, those two principles, like working every day. And if you miss a day, that's okay. Say, okay, but tomorrow I'm going to go back, and you don't have to say, oh God, I got to do 10 minutes tomorrow. No, I'm just going to do 5. You know, I missed today. Let me get back to work tomorrow. That small effort. And if you can only spare a minute a day, like, and try doing a minute a day. And there is stuff you can do in a minute a day. You could be like, well, what do I want? Start the timer and be like, what would I like to do? And then just write the things you like to do for a minute. And then the next day say, which of these ideas do I, oh, I like this idea. Oh, my minute's up. Day 3. Oh, what is this idea? Like that's super, super powerful. Like those two concepts. All right, I'm going to bounce back over to here. Let's see. Oh, could I do a Koa only episode? Moore asks. I don't know. For me, I guess I think about this like Koa is my dog. Like she's not a fictional character. So it's kind of hard for me. Like I guess Koa is in the Knock style episodes. But yeah, like I don't know if I would I could try to, I don't know. I guess like, so I can't do it as a fictional. I've thought about this, but I guess I just haven't found a way to put Koa in the show. Excuse me, bubbles. So maybe one day Koa will be in this show. She knows she's beloved by the listeners. Nora asks, do you plan the intros in the same way you plan out the stories? No. Or are they made up on the spot? Pretty much yes. I mean, again, I don't even know how the intros work, to be honest, to totally expose myself. But like, so like I have like notes, like I talked about the story ideas for intros. So I'll write down like, oh, what about this for an intro idea? And so I'll have that note, and then I'll be like, okay, well, we got to record an intro today. And I'll have like a couple ideas sketched out. And then if I sit down to record the intro, because of the style of the intro is like so when I record the intro, here's how our intro day, because I just had one. Today was an intro recording day. So I sat down, I recorded a round of thank yous. Then I recorded sponsor spot for Quip, and then another upcoming sponsor. And then I recorded the intro. So the intro, I start off with like, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends beyond the binary. And then as I'm saying that, I'm like, what witty thing am I going to say? Then I do one of those for the patrons. Then I do another one for the regular episode. And then I say, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends beyond the, it's time for the podcaster that doesn't know what he's going to say because it's time for sleep with me. Podcast puts you to sleep. If you can pay attention for the next few minutes, here's the ways we keep the show going. Then there's a pause. Then I say, oh, mystery bard. Then I record that part. And then I go, hey, you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing. So then I have that part. And then I kind of just see what develops in my mind. But like I said, if I have those notes, I'll be like, okay, maybe I could talk about that. Like peanut, I don't know, this is not one intro, but like peanut butter and potato chips. And I say, oh, peanut butter and potato chips. Well, it has alliteration. And then, but then eventually, if I have that as a note, I'll never use it because something more interesting will come up. It's like a guarantee, almost a guarantee. Like I think I've joked about this before. If I have a note for an intro, I can get 5 intros out of that note before the stuff on the note comes up, which is nice because it's like a security blanket or something, or it keeps me loose enough. Because I think the key of the intros is staying loose, and there's like the part of it that's familiar for the listener, but it's also familiar for me. So it like eases me, just like it's supposed to ease the listener into bedtime. It eases me into the performance and the presence and being there for the listener. And then if I'm eased into the moment, then I can be aware of like, okay, I'm going to send my voice across the deep dark night. I'm going to use but I don't know. It's like, then I can be aware of something else. I mean, now I'm more aware of my body because I'm not in the, but and then, yeah, so they kind of just develop, but very similar to kind of the question I answered earlier about the show. The intro also has to have an end. So my brain kind of has a clock built into it, but I also have the recorder. So I'll be monitoring the time in my brain. I'll be like, what does this feel like? It's been 8 minutes. And then I'll glance down and I'll be like, okay, no, it's been 10 minutes. Okay, let's get a feel. Can we get, what are we going to be in at? Like, I'm not usually like very strict about the time, but it has to be contained in a certain amount of time. So the structure, even though it's loose, it has the beginning, it has a middle in some sense, because it's like, okay, I have to explain the structure to the new listeners, and I have to tell the listeners that they don't need to listen, and there's no pressure to fall asleep. Then there's an open section that can be whatever I want. Then it's like, okay, well, make sure you listen, you give it 2 or 3 tries. So it's like the middle of the show intros are kind of open, but then it could be a callback to something that came up at the beginning, or I could go to whatever I have in my notes. So sometimes they're not planned out, but sometimes I have a topic, and that usually never doesn't always get used. That's a good question, though. Val asks, obviously I love science fiction or fantasy television. Would you consider recaps of old episodes of stupid shows, quote unquote? This question comes up. This is a good question. It comes up a lot. The reason I choose the TV shows is because I have to watch them like somewhere between 3 to 5 or 6 times in order to have the material to record an episode about it. So part of the reason I choose the shows I choose is because I test out shows, and it's like, okay, I just can't, there either isn't enough there, or, there are good performance art podcasts, like, where people are rewatching stuff. But for me, it has to stay fascinating and interesting. And so like, it can't be something that feels like, I don't know, so it's like I have to like be enjoying it, or at least be. It can be challenging. Believe me, I get burned out and stuff, but I don't know. It has to be shows that like I have some like a vested relationship in, I guess, in something. Like, could be the performances, it could be the comedy, it could be how do they do this. Like, I think like Star Trek: The Next Generation, I think it's a lot about the acting, but it's also about the a lot of it is about the acting, and I don't know. but I mean, I'm always open to testing stuff out. But again, it's like so. Just for example, like I'm already watching Star Trek: The Next Generation episodes for recording. Then I'll start, like when Game of Thrones is done, and then those will get released like a few months from now. So it's like I'm doing the like casual watch now, and then with the intention of like, okay, then I'm going to start the note based watches soon. So I don't know. I mean, I mean, The Prisoner is like one kind of science fiction-y show I'd like to try out, but I just haven't had the openings on the schedule. Let me see how many more questions there are here. Okay. Then I might not get through all these questions, unfortunately. Let me see what other things. Okay. Yeah. Sitting stand-up comedy. Yeah. Thanks, Julie. Yeah. Yeah. Koa can't bark. Koa doesn't bark too much. I'm lucky. Okay. I'm going to try to get through these, as many of these as I can. Oh, Allie asked about the live shows. Like, if anybody hasn't been to a live show, I'm doing one in Nashville at the turn of the month. I have a lot every second Wednesday in the Bay Area. I think we're booked through maybe even the end of this year. But yeah, the live shows, like, it's very much like the podcast, but in person. So I guess it's a little bit different. I know for me it's different because I'm performing in front of people. I don't know what it's like for the listeners. But for the shows, like 33% of the people seem like they chill to the point of falling asleep or a catatonic state. A third of people are kind of drifting in and out of like a super chill mode. And then a third of people are kind of paying attention. I do notice there's like a lot different than the podcast is like, there's like people at the end of the show will exchange looks kind of like, so there is like this communal aspect, like where it's like, wow, that was an hour. What, were you asleep? Like, I don't know. It's just like it's like an in-person performance of the podcast. I don't know. It's tough to explain, but it's really fun. I mean, I think it's really fun. And I mean, I think like I've been developing it for a year. And there's like a handful of people that just keep coming back every single show or every other show. And I really appreciate those people if they're watching this YouTube video. It means a lot to me, but it also communicates to me that they're enjoying themselves. So that actually helps me persist at like the live shows because they're not easy because I'm trying to get people out on a Wednesday night. So, yeah, but they can be fun. Christine asks, excuse me, how to get Antonio Banderas to be a regular guest. I don't even remember now. I think his career was in a different place than it is now. And it was just a good opportunity. And he's just a friendly guy. I think that's really what it is. He's just a generous, kind soul. And he's willing to give his time, even now that he's super successful. I mean, he really has like so, yeah. Oh, and then Justin asked kind of the same question. I have no idea how he first got on the show or when he started. I think it was like, I can hear him saying, hi-ya. So I don't know if that was like, I know there was like early on we used to introduce shows with music, and I think Get Bestos had like this Western music. So I don't know if that's when he first did it or for his first Nuns in Space, but I can hear him saying like, hi-ya. And I was like, did you just do hi-ya? And so that was when he first did it. Lori Diaz, what color are my parents' eyes? Honestly, I'm not like I don't even know what. I'm not very good at observing people's eye color, so I don't even know. I don't have any idea. I couldn't tell you. Koa, Judy asks. Jill asks, how much could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Enough till they're full. Roberta asks, I admire your quirky sense of humor, sound of your voice. When you say well, thank you for putting us. Would I ever consider reviewing old comedies like Frasier, I Love Lucy? Frasier does get a lot of requests. Maybe I'll do a Frasier holiday special because that was one of the top-rated holiday specials. But I kind of went through like the kind of requirements for the TV show. I mean, we'll probably be looking for something in like 2020 late 2020 or like at some point in 2020, I'll have to find something to fill the GOT void, because right now we'll have a smattering of, we'll probably fall into a pattern of like some Doctor Who, some TNG, and then The Good Place, and then we'll find like a fourth series eventually. But that would be in probably, man, I don't like thinking that far ahead, but pretty far ahead. Maybe what is it, 2020, I guess. But yeah, maybe a Frasier holiday one. Do I have to get permission from TV shows to use the programs? I know using audio from the shows. I mean, I had the Good Place and NBC has been the only show that has gone out of their way to like help give us a little bit of access. Not that I think that might have been. I think I've asked before, but I mean so NBC has been very generous, just like with like sometimes like giving me press access to at least watch the shows like a week or two early, which is because right now it's really hard. Like tomorrow's gonna be rough for me because of Game of Thrones. Like it's just really hard doing TV shows on a quick turnaround when you don't have early access. Okay. Madeline asks, do I have trouble sleeping? Yes. Yeah, I still have trouble sleeping. I mean, I think like having a pitch dark room, fan, multiple source. I have a fan and a air purifier that are pretty loud, window open. I mean, I live in a pretty mild climate. I pretty much have a bedtime routine down. I mean, I don't follow it up. I mean, I read for like 30 minutes, try to have other more high level, like meditating or journaling or stretching or personal work type stuff that I would be in my bedtime routine, but I'm not always, sometimes I'm like resentful of how much of a routine you have to do. But pitch dark room is definitely helpful. White noise or like layers of white noise and coolness is important to me. And then for me, reading is the last stage for me. And then I'll hopefully sometimes be able to fall asleep. Joe asks, Joe can relate to checking into a hotel and getting placed by the elevator in the ice maker. Yeah, it happens to me every single time. I mean, I can't even believe, like the last time I had brought stuff because I was like stressed, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll take a bath at this hotel. And then they give me the one friggin', I was like, they were like, give me a room by the elevator and the ice machine and some super loud people, and it just had a shower. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I didn't ask for another room either. Road warrior tips. I mean, I think bringing sleep phones or a Bluetooth speaker for me has been key. I mean, whether you listen to the podcast, I guess if you bring both, then you could have white noise and the podcast. So you listen to the podcast on your sleep phones and then have a Bluetooth speaker playing like pink noise. Having a Bluetooth speaker that I can place like if the window or the door is the noisier area. And actually, I moved away from Bluetooth speaker. I've started using line in because then I would wake up because even if it didn't re-loop, like I've tried to find tracks that don't have a re-loop sound, like the Bluetooth connection would get interrupted and that would wake me up. And then a diffuser, man, that is like having a diffuser or like a humidifier, like a small one. And if you diffuse, you could use like some sort of essential oil. There's tons of essential oil people out there, but that like has those are the two things. If I don't travel with, then I'm like, I can't believe I didn't bring the speaker, or I can't believe I didn't bring the diffuser. The diffuser just helps like put some water in the air, especially if you're like me and you're pumping the air conditioning, and like it can kind of add a nice scent to make it sleepy. I mean, for me, I can't drink because I'm like I don't drink anymore. So for me, if I'm really stressed, I'll take a bath at the hotel, which kind of still like I'm like, but if I'm like really stressed, like that helps too. Um, can you demonstrate creaky dulcetness versus tangential lulling? I don't think I can. I mean, I'm getting pretty like my voice getting pretty creaky right now because I recorded and then I did this. Um, Jan asks, do the ideas for what the heck? Now my phone's buzzing. Let's see. Do the ideas for plots come at random times throughout the week? Are you jotting them down, or does it come pouring out of you while you're writing it? I'd say both. Like, I mean, so for the written episodes, I'm writing every morning. I wrote them today, Saturday. I was writing today. I mean, there will be days I miss, but usually it's like depending on the structure of my day. It works best when it's the first thing I do after I like get up, drink some coffee, watch the morning news, the local news, and then maybe do some stretching is to write. So not like while I'm still asleep, but after I've woken up. A lot of it will come like not when I'm walking around, but then the next day or a day or two later, if I'm just showing up to write, as people say. But yeah, sometimes stuff will come to me later in the day, like, oh, what about that? Like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. A lot of times the stuff comes to me during the day and I don't write it down. I forget about it though. Excuse me. That was strong bubbles. Amy, I appreciate your creativity. Been useful to me. How do you keep it a sound level that doesn't wake people up? I mean, there's a couple things. Like I'm always moderating my tone, so I'm recording it. I'm listening. So I think that's the main thing is like monitoring it, so I can hear it. The show gets edited, so every once in a while, I'll like my modulation will jump. Like I say, and then I don't know. Like even if it's just a slip, like I'll say, yeah, no, and then I was like jump, like, and I'll just pause. I'll say, okay, let's redo that. So that'll get edited out. So there's editing. I mean, the production of the show is not like what the end result is. So there's editing, there's the monitoring. So a lot of it is just me staying calm and staying present in the moment. Then there's just the post-production. So we use a compressor, which helps like level out the sound a little bit more. What a compressor does is brings loud sounds down and quiet sounds up, which isn't too much for our show, but I mean, even a tiny bit. And then when we finalize the show, we use the same kind of tech. Like, so then when the show's exported, it's like exported at like a normalized volume of, and then I'm mixing the show. So the show gets edited and then mixed. So when I'm mixing the show, I have like a loudness meter. So just in case, I mean, the show's always exported. It kind of goes through the same production process. So even before I mix it, all the sounds should be at the same level, but just to make sure or if something weird happened on an export or import. So just like a lot of like TLC, I guess, but there's different stages to kind of keep the sound level. Cody asks, do like particular singers have food and beverages to avoid on recording days or a pre-recording regimen? You know, I do, like fizzy water is out. They definitely can't have fizzy water for recording. But so, yeah, my little secrets are, but I haven't been doing this since I moved. I used to do, I would have like 1/4 of a green apple, and then I would have cough drop, and then I have coconut water, or there's like coconut aloe water. Those I switch on and off between one of those two to drink during recording. So before recording, I have this green apple, cough drop, one cough drop like a few minutes before, and then right when I'm checking my levels and stuff, I'll be having a cough drop. Ran out of cough drops. I got to go get more. I haven't been consistent about buying green apples. Then I warm up. So I'll do the thank yous first, and that warms my voice up. It's more about, for me, it's not about the creaky dulcets, but it's about the mouth noises. Like I have to have like, and like I sound like a sailor. Like, so if for some reason my day's off and I can't record right after I eat. Like it has to be like a couple hours. Usually I brush my teeth, but not right before. Because anything like I'm monitoring it and I'm listening like really, like my headphones are jacked. So like I can hear everything. So if my mouth makes the slightest click, it's very distracting to me because I know it'll be very distracting. It could be fixed in post, but that's something that's like can be destructive to other, like I don't want it to be fixed in post. So I want to avoid quality in, quality out. So like I have like will lose my temper so bad. Like if I hear mouth noises, it's like I mean, usually it's because I didn't do that stuff. It's like my time was compressed. So I had lunch, brushed my teeth, went down to record, didn't have enough time to warm up. And so my mouth's noisy. And then I'll be really mad about it. And then I'll be distracted. And then I'll have to like take 20 minutes of like talking or something to warm up to like where my whole mouth is lubricated, where I feel like it's quiet. So those are all little secrets. Dan asked, is Ray going to go on a Disney cruise? I would love for him to go on one. I guess I'd have to try to find the time and the budget for him. But yeah. So yeah. One day maybe. I guess like my time for going to Disney cruises is probably my window's compressing as my daughter gets older. So hopefully at some point I'll have to check with Ray. Be like, I don't know what. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I've never been on a cruise in my entire life of any kind, so I can't imagine Ray might have to go by himself. Sheila asks, could I tell tales of famous sleepers, Sleeping Beauty or Rip Van Winkle? Maybe. I mean, I've kind of moved away like from, well, I haven't moved away from fiction of other, I mean, like possibly, yeah, I mean, I guess I'd have to like look at the, like the reason I did Cinderella was because I was playing with Cinderella dolls. This was before I started the podcast, but when I was thinking of what would I do the podcast about, and I was playing with Cinderella dolls with my daughter. She was very young, and she had gotten a set of Cinderella dolls. It included Cinderella, the fairy godmother, the prince, and the three stepsisters. And she said, Dad, you could play with the stepsisters and the stepmother. And so I was playing with them, and I just found them, the stepmother, fascinating. And so then I was like vamping as the stepmother, and then that's how Agatha came into being. So maybe like it's more about like a lot of times it's not it's a circuitous route to how I make stuff. So it would be like, oh, would I do something about Sleeping Beauty? And then literally like 4 years from now, I'd be like, the idea would come to me, or the end point. Like for example, so the characters for the story, I'll tell you the names of the characters for this new series because your patrons are Isosceles and Dr. Triangle. And it was an intro years and years and years ago. And I had like re-listened to the intro, and then I even like did some just general out like, oh, who, like I just liked the idea of a character named Isosceles, and then I was like in a character named Dr. Triangle. But I never had any, I didn't have any openings like of show openings, but I also was like, what would they do? And very similar to other characters, it sat on the shelf. And then I would come back to it and I'd be like, oh man, what about Dr. Triangle and Isosceles? Wouldn't it be nice to have a series with them? Well, what would they do? What would the series be? I don't know. Would it be math related? Well, I don't know. It feels a little shoot. I mean, it would definitely have to be something. Well, I don't know. I'm feeling like we're trying to okay, well, let's just put it back on the shelf. And then recently I said, oh, let me give them a look again. And then it was a more active look because I knew I wanted to do a new series. And I said, what would you two, who are you two? Like, what would, and then it was more, what world would they exist in? Like, what, okay. And then, I mean, because I already had, like, from their names, you could almost get, like, Isosceles and Dr. Triangle. You can kind of start to feel their character, like, just a taste of their characters. So it's like, okay. I kind of feel like I know you a little bit. Like what's and then what's the conflict? It's always like conflict, even in a sleep podcast, drives everything. Like what's going on in their world? Like what are the challenges in their world? What are their interpersonal relationship like? What are the challenges in their interpersonal relationship? What are their inner lives like? What are the conflicts in their inner lives? What are their outer lives like? So then it kind of say, okay, well, what kind of world would give them and then, okay, what's the relationship with math like? So that's like, I guess, like, maybe that answers that question. Pointless meanders. Gregory asks, do you contemplate when they will appear? Or they identified in advance? Kind of both. I think I kind of answered that a little bit earlier, but it's like, so a lot of it's about being in the moment and kind of seeing what's coming in my brain and narrating what's going on in my imagination. But other times it has to be planned out, or it's like work in, work out. So like with the TV shows, like I said, I watch the episodes so many times and take tons of notes, like so that then there's tons. If there's tons of material, then there's tons of rooms for meanders. It's like, oh, the more structured the episodes can be, the more loose they can be in between the structure. I mean, I don't always get there, like, but like structure allows like looseness and meanders, like, or having a lot of stuff to talk about allows me to not to just like the intros, like knowing what the intro is going to be on allows me not to talk about the intros about. Let's see how many more. Oh, we're almost done. Okay. I just went like a little bit over time here. Carrie asks the influence of Phish. Yeah, Phish is definitely a big influence on the podcast. I mean, more so of, I guess what you're saying, like whimsical, lyrical. It's like that one, that they've been so persistent. Two, they've done it while they've had some mass success. It's mostly about success with the audience and the people that get it and enjoy it. I mean, especially with Phish is like a divisive thing. Like people like, I can't believe you listen to Phish or whatever. Like, but it's like, and I mean, there's people that are always looking for conflict, but it's like, oh yeah, man, that's what I'm into. Like you're into whatever. Like I don't need to convert anybody. Like, so it's like, I don't know, just that idea that they can like make a living. I mean, now, I mean, they've done better than that, but like that they can make a living at doing something they enjoy that has this joy in it and that people appreciate. And then that brings joy to them, like the listeners, like, and then there's just this freedom in what they do. Like, I don't know, like it's very structured and very loose, like, and very like goofy, and only some people are going to like it. Right. Like it's self-limiting, but in a good way. Let me just pop back to YouTube and see what's going on here. Okay. Okay. Kind of, Jill, I write every episode. So, I mean, so I guess I plot out each episode, but I don't plot out the season for like Dr. Triangle and stuff like that. Okay. Let's see. Where was I? Katie. Oh, let's see. Lois. Do I have any blooper reels? Oh, my phone's buzzing. Do I have any blooper reels of? I can have some old blooper reels. They're on SoundCloud, or way back in the Patreon. We don't do it anymore just because like the it's just something the show doesn't have a luxury of time for. Like it used to be when I edited all the episodes and I had a little bit more time, because there wasn't any listeners. Like I had like more time. Like I would like. I edited the show myself. I would export the bloopers. I mean, a lot of bloopers were like swear words or me losing my temper. Or me singing. So, and I used to do bloopers like instead of doing the thank yous to start the show, I would like do something goofy to start the show. But now it's just like not in our workflow. I guess we could work it back into the workflow. It would be like that the podcast, like the editors are paid. So it would be like more work for them. So it'd be something that would have to be compensated. I mean, there is that, like, it's somewhere on the Patreon. I don't know where a link to it is. Carl, one of our editors, made a soundboard of some of the bloopers he keeps, and I'd have to check with him if he still keeps some bloopers. But it is like it just be a matter of paying for the work involved in making the blooper reel. But when I get to edit it, when I get the episodes, like there's already a first pass edit, so all that stuff's gone. Like the guys that work on the show are very professional. So the shows are like almost ready to air. They're not mixed, but like, I mean, they're like 90 to 99.9% of the way there. I mean, they still have to be mixed, but like so when I say mixed, I mean like the music, they have to be separated into the segments. But so they don't have any bloopers in them anymore. So yeah, maybe like that could be something I put on the Patreon goal list of like, oh, if we have this many more patrons, that would allow me to compensate them for like extra 30 minutes per edit, which something we could look into. It's like I guess it wouldn't be a raise because it would be like asking them to do more work. But yeah, I guess like I make less bloopers now too is the thing. Like I've just learned to like stop and like pause and put dead air. I mean, unless I get really mad, like from the mouth noises I was talking about earlier. Katie asks, did you ever take any creative writing or literature classes that influenced your writing style? Yeah, so let's see. Like when I was going to college or university or whatever, I mean, the classes that influenced me most were like learning about John Berger, way of seeing, a lot of like classes around like, I don't know, a lot of classes I enjoyed were more about like the kind of the way, like philosophy of like choices in media and stuff like that. Then as I became an adult, I had a creative writing class I took probably in my 20s maybe, that I was like, when I was trying to make, let me just do something. And I didn't really follow through. I was really intimidated, but that kind of memory has stuck with me because I just was too tight. Like I was not like I just wasn't in a place where I could let myself fully participate or let my guard down. And I didn't believe, not that you have to believe in yourself, but like that it was still like something like I was hoping the class would fix me instead of like the class just being a creative outlet. Then in my 30s, I guess, like I took these classes at Berkeley City College. So at the community, this is what I tell people, like, just take a class at your community college because it's, even though it's not as inexpensive as it should be, it's still pretty inexpensive. And I took a narrative screenwriting class there with this great teacher, Joey Zanders, and met a lot of cool people in that class, had some deadlines because of the class, and met some, like, there was another second level of that class. And then some of us started a writing group out of that class. And it just kind of started the engine of me of like starting to do the work and starting to like get feedback on my work. So I don't know if it influenced my style, but it set me on the path to find my voice. As far as the podcast goes, like you're saying, like, I mean, I think I finally found my voice through the podcast, but all of those were stages in finding my voice. Laura asks, will there be any more Girl Raised by a Theme Park episodes? Those have been my favorite part. Yeah, I was thinking about this. I don't know if you'd asked me somewhere else or someone else did. I mean, most likely, I unfortunately I had thought of some stuff related to it that maybe I wrote down or maybe I didn't somewhere. But yeah, I was thinking about it because I was like, oh, if we did a second series, yeah, when would it take place, before or after that series? Like, would it be a prequel, or like would it take place after? So yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated by that, her and the park. So probably, I mean, more than likely, most of our series usually get a second season. I'm trying to think, other than the holiday ones, which are because they're just more compressed. Patty asks, am I doing the podcast a full-time job? Yeah, I've been working on the show full-time since the end of 2018, I think. Yeah, and like hopefully I've been saying this for a long time, but like the show's almost getting to the point where I can hire someone. I mean, I'm still trying to more focus on keeping the podcast free, which kind of makes me pull back from thinking like, because I definitely do like 2 or 3 full-time jobs for the show. So it'd be nice to have, I mean, there is like enough, I mean, there's more than enough work for another full-time position. It's like making sure that I can both fund a full-time position and keep the podcast free. So it's kind of like a mix of like, there's definitely the support we need on Patreon. But it's like the free podcast is also subsidized by sponsors. And so it's like keeping the free listeners. It's just finding like just small hump to get over, but it's also like a fear thing. It's like, I do everything around the show. And I'm also always afraid like, oh, if I do that, like my main thing is like keeping the podcast going and trying to keep it free for everybody. But yeah, I definitely do it as a full-time job. I mean, and it's been, I'm so grateful because I don't think the podcast, it couldn't manage another job at this point, but it's like also just giving me so much more time to focus on the creative stuff, but also the community stuff and the maintenance of like all the inbounds of like people reaching out about the show and just the mechanics of keeping a podcast going. Like, and so it's all listeners, like you patrons, like I mean, when I say it on the show, it's like the truth. Like there would be no podcast without the patrons and the people that support the sponsors. Like the show would have stopped. I mean, and the show would stop. Like you are the ones that keep the show free. And this is like an announcement I was going to save, but like, I'd have to look at like where we are. But at some point, the podcast may have already crossed this threshold of being downloaded 100 million times. So the show's crossed a threshold, or it's about to, of like 100 million downloads. And like there's about 10,000 people or less that are like actively involved in keeping the show going. And so whether you're a new patron or you've been a patron for a long time, you're a huge part of that. Like those 100 million downloads are like on the shoulders of the people that have actively decided to engage and keep the show going. Like 100 million downloads. Like, I don't know how many people the show's impacted. I mean, but like a lot because of the people like you that choose to keep the show. I mean, so that to me is mind blowing. Like, so yeah, not only do I get to do this as a job, but like it's because of you, like that I get to do this as a job. So thank you. Dan asks, sorry, that got pretty deep pretty quick. Dan asks, is there anything you found helpful for optimizing task switching? I'm laughing because I've become familiar with this term in the last 6 months. Such as in the event you only have 10 to 15 minutes to write. I mean, I think like you're at like I'm laughing just because it is like this idea of task switching, and I'd read a little bit about it like 6 months ago. Is like not like it's like giving yourself 10 to, I think you kind of said the answer too. It's like not switching tasks, so not checking if I only have 10 to 15 minutes to write. Let's say we have 15 minutes, it'd be like, okay, I'm not going to check my phone. So I think like it takes probably 5 minutes for your brain to like from whatever task you were doing to switch over. I mean, I don't even know what the studies say, but like, so it's like giving yourself some bandwidth on the front end of that to like switch into the task. So like if you need 15 minutes, then you probably need 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So it is like almost like about setting the time aside, not getting distracted. So minimizing distractions or accepting. I don't know. For me, a lot of times it's like I'll go through some days where I'm like super distracted. Oh, I want to check my phone. And it's like sometimes it is just about being like, oh, are you stressed? Or is there something you need to check? Like, is it obsessive checking of like, this is feeling uncomfortable, I need to do something else, which for me, that's a lot of the time it is. It's like, oh, well, let me just check those emails. Well, yeah, I know it's scary to write this new series about Dr. Triangle and Isosceles. Okay, go ahead and check your phone, but let's check the clock here. So I think like maybe if you only have 10 or 15 minutes, like accepting that maybe you only get 5 minutes of good writing in, but that's 5,000,000% more than 0 minutes. Like, I mean, using mental tricks like that, like, so celebrating that as a victory, saying, well, geez, Dan, you set aside those 15 minutes to write, and you did write for 5 focused minutes. Like, that is a huge deal. Like, let's try to do that again tomorrow, because then it's even a bigger deal. But yeah, it is really hard with like all the distractions we have, and then just being human, and that those distractions kind of meet a need that we don't necessarily need filled, like the shot of serotonin or dopamine or whatever. So it is just trying to be like, oh, I set aside this time to do this. And then a lot of times, not so much on the writing, but like other stuff, like it'd be like, what if we just do this? Like if it's like right now it's 5:37. If I was doing some task, like maybe some kind of writing that felt more monotonous, it's like, hey, could we just do this, focus back on this until 5:40, and then you could stop, like, and be like, yeah, let's try to just do 3 more minutes of this. And a lot of times that's good, like if you're stuck in writing, like with using time, like you're not in some kind of zone. It's like it's 5:38 now. Well, let's write for the next 2 minutes. Let's see if we can write 100 things that Dr. Triangle would have for lunch, and then just start writing, and then be like, oh, well, I only got to 50. Okay, well, can we write, keep a list, see if we can get to 100 in the next minute. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like accepting those, like a lot of it is acceptance too. It's like, oh, it's hard to change tasks, or oh, it's hard to do this, or it's hard to write, and just giving yourself permission, but staying committed too, and staying persistent, and realizing that persistence is not the reason that's what they call like there's obstacles, like internal and external obstacles in the way of it, and you're really doing, by grappling with those obstacles and accepting they're difficult, you're really doing powerful work. Let's see. Okay, so those are all the questions on there. I got to run. Let's see. Intros are all blooper reels. Intros, stand-up comedy. Thank you, Jill. Wolfie, does it help if we listen to the free show? I mean, the sponsors are really only looking, like in the end, like all podcast sponsorship is like based on direct action. So really the sponsors aren't looking for like numbers. They're just looking for customers. Like, so like all of our sponsors in the end, like look at how much it costs to advertise on Sleep With Me, and did we sell equal or more than that? Like, did we acquire enough customers like that it was worth it? Like, it's a very, like, and that's just like how podcast advertising works. It's a very zero-sum game. And so it's only, I don't know. I mean, it is something I really feel torn about, to be honest. Like, what do I do? Like I want to keep the podcast free for everybody. And there's like this small percentage of people, the patrons, and the small percentage of people that support the sponsors that are invested in the show. And I think most people are just like falling asleep. Like, it's just hard because it's a sleep podcast. So it's like the free list, the listeners, the sponsors, really, people that buy the sponsors products really subsidize the distribution costs of the free podcasts. Like, so it's just more like, I mean, for patrons, you're already doing your part, and like you're getting your own feed and everything, and like you're covered. Like, it's a part of Patreon. Like your distribution costs are built into that. Like, so I mean, it's like, I guess like I'm trying to do a better way of like communicating the sponsors to the patrons, but patrons you should just say, well, I mean, if you're looking for a suitcase, the Away suitcase is pretty sweet, but like, it's like, oh, if you're looking for a product and the sponsors, but you shouldn't feel obligated to support the sponsors because you're already supporting the show. I mean, I don't know if anybody, yeah, it's just confused. It's weird making something that's like based on, like, you're putting people to sleep, but you rely on direct listener involvement to keep it free and sustained. And I mean, that's the amazing thing about Patreon. But the show also has, like, to be free and available for everybody. It can't, the Patreon just doesn't, we need our sponsors as well. So, I don't know if it's clear about that, but like, yeah, the list, like patrons can check it out. I'm trying to do a little bit better job and to be a little bit more focused on getting the free podcast a little bit more energy behind the sponsors. But it's like, I mean, there's always pushback too, like because the podcast is free. Just because the podcast is free doesn't mean it's free, right? Like, but it is free. In order to keep it free, I'm like, oh, how much do I push, like, to make sure the sponsors are supported and up front and to keep the show free? But then there's always pushback of like, well, isn't the podcast free? Why is it like? It's like, well, it's not. I don't know. So it's complicated. But I appreciate all the support. I mean, and yeah, I hope that answers everybody's questions. Thanks for everybody for coming out for the chat, and have a great evening. It's Saturday. I hope you have a good Saturday and Sunday. Last episode of Game of Thrones, so I can't believe it's over. Thanks for all the questions in the chat. Thanks, Wolfie D. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, everybody else that's in here. Heath, Puppy, Cash, Penny, Jen, Amber, Daniel. Yeah, thanks, everybody, for coming out, and have a great Sunday.